Nerdiest Prime.
Hi, and welcome to Nerdiest Prime, where we are reviewing every episode of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 4, and we are in Episode 4. Very excited to talk about this episode. Let's start with our first impressions, and let's start with Jetty.
Me, dog. And
You do this to her every week.
I know, you do. I know. I'm like, what? No, not me again. No. Okay. All right. This was a very enjoyable episode. I liked the completely different A and B stories, particularly the A story, with all of this deep dive into like Orion culture that we got. And Tendi finally got some like real character backstory, which was really great because we've sort of gotten little like bits and pieces, but not like the full picture. So overall, I really enjoyed this episode, shockingly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I really like the episode.
Mhm.
Maybe I should be harder on it because they're all so. You know what? I hated the episode, and then we'll spend this whole time. I'll just try and defend that opinion. No, it's going to be too difficult. I think I really did like it. I had some issues with it, but it's such a good exploration of Tendi's character and Orion culture. I thought that was a lot of fun. You don't really, I haven't seen that before, so it was neat to kind of see it here. So yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah, I was like, when I saw the start of it, I'm like, oh, Namir will be happy. We're back to the mystery ship, destroying another race's battle
That's
cruiser
true.
or whatever. So we're back to the mystery. I thought it would tie in with Tendi's story more. Like I thought that was going to be where her sister was or something, but it ended up not being related.
Incinerated? Her sister was going to be incinerated? That was your theory?
Well, I thought maybe they might do a deep dive into some drama that there was a personal loss, but I guess this show's a little too happy-go-lucky, goofy to go that dark. Uh, but yeah, it was nice to see again a deep dive into the Orion culture. We've seen them since the very first episode of Star Trek, so we're coming up on 60 years. They've never really done too much with them. Little dribs and drabs here, Enterprise, and yeah, I think Enterprise is really the only show that ever did really anything with them, and even that wasn't a whole lot. So, and we've seen little drops, hints of Tendi's possible syndicate connections or piracy connections over the past few seasons. So it's nice to see that all blossom now and see where she came from. So that was fun. And then we had a nice little B story with Rutherford and Boimler learning to get along. So yeah, it was fun as usual.
Well, Namir, you were saying that you weren't gonna, that you felt like maybe somebody should do a counterpoint and complain about the episode. So I did
Uh-oh.
like the episode. I did like the exploration of the Orion culture, and it's great when the show is not just trying to be a funny show referencing other Star Trek shows, that it's actually doing something like, making, exploring a culture and making it canon. I do have some problems with the episode, but overall, I did like it. And I was thinking, Lower Decks is so bleak and dark. This like nice little Orion crew chilling out, having a good time, and they just get incinerated. And it's like the third crew of Lower Deckers that just like vaporized.
Yeah.
You're just like, too bad, you're just dead. And then Boimler and Rutherford fight the whole episode. I was just, oh my god, what's going on?
We don't know that
it's
they're
going,
dead. They could have been digitized or some craziness. They're not
I don't
necessarily
know.
dead.
They look like they were basically melted in a bright white light. Like you can see them
That
kind
kind
of
of
get
like
disintegrated.
yeah.
Yeah,
while they're screaming.
Well, yeah. In incredible
Okay,
pain.
fine.
That's right.
Just trying to find a sunnier outlook here, but fine. Just deal with the murder and pain and torture.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me that. Well, that's why I was saying I think it's V'ger's, love child or something, because it's kind of like the V'ger in the beginning of the motion picture where everybody gets like
V'ger takes
digitized.
Leah, and yeah.
No, I'm talking about the
Maybe.
Klingons at the beginning.
Oh yes, yeah.
That whole scene. Yeah. So how do we feel about the beginning of the episode in this evolving plot, multi episode arc with the mysterious ship and all that stuff?
Yeah, like Alan was saying, I'm happy it's back. As soon as I saw the Orion crew, bonding and kind of riffing off of each other, I was like, they're going to be dead soon. I was like, they are not going to last, and they were. It was great. It was glorious. So I'm glad they're getting back to the larger arc. There's that mystery there that I think is great, and they're sort of you know paying it out in dribs and drabs. But I'm ready for some more information. Like I'm ready for like whatever is next.
Mm.
I'm ready for them to encounter kind of what this thing is, and I don't even have any theories for what it could be. I don't know if you guys do, because I don't recognize the ship. I don't recognize anything about it. It's like totally brand new.
Deidre's love child.
Well, in order for V'ger to have a love child,
Terrified.
V'ger would have to mate with something. So what did
Did
V'ger mate
you
with?
did you
The
not watch
parasite.
the movie?
Oh, I don't remember the movie that well. What happens?
They 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 mate.
What they mate? What are you talking about?
Super long and
Did
boring.
you? And you didn't watch the movie? What? Oh,
I
No, I
watched
did one.
it
I don't
like
I don't
it was
remember it.
probably 25, 30 years ago that I watched it,
I
and
don't know
I
if I can
don't
have a conversation with any of you. I don't
remember.
know. I don't
I just
understand.
rewatched it when it came out in 4K. It was very nice in 4K.
Nice. I do own it.
Visual,
I just haven't
visually,
watched
I
it.
I am
it's
gonna
still super boring.
Paramount Plus has the director's cut, so I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then you
Anyway, what
can
was your
watch
point,
it. And
Lucas?
is that's what
Does it have a
the
love
thing is?
child?
Yes, they
The,
had
it's
the whole thing is that at the end is that they have the humans
Yeah,
in the
I
cloud have a
know that.
baby.
Yeah, and the thing is a result of that, right? Like it's a descendant of V'ger.
What
The thing
thing?
that we're seeing in Lower Decks, the ship.
Yeah,
The
That's the
sh-
only
that's what you're
theory I
saying.
have. Yes.
hmm.
It's a terrible theory, like most of your
That's
theories,
that's
but
that's
there you
so
go.
horrible.
Okay, we're just gonna move along. Oh no,
Oh
but
my god.
no, but does nobody have any theories about the ship?
Like not really. I mean, it just it's very alien. We have no idea what's on the inside. We don't, it could be anybody or anything. It could be
It's
from the future. It could be, I don't know, whatever.
Right, but you gotta think about it. Let's talk about
Nothing.
it seriously for a second. It's a
Okay.
small ship, so there's not going to be a lot of
Yes.
people. Maybe just one person or two, but I think it's like
I think
one
it's just
person in
one.
the
Yeah.
ship. Yeah, and it's somebody who, for some reason, wants to blow everybody up. It's not any friends with anybody, but and we see in the trailer that eventually they're gonna destroy Federation ships. So
Hmm.
it's enemy to everybody. So who is enemy to everybody and is just one person?
I think it's a koala.
space koala,
It's
I
a space
mean,
koala.
there might
the
be,
afterlife koala.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just not
mm,
enough information.
Okay,
It's either
well,
going to be
well,
something off the wall, like an original Lower Decks creation, or they're going to pluck some random thing out of Trek's past, like when they brought the Packlids back as an adversary. So
mm.
but
they
it's
might
not. But
find
I don't
some
think it's going to
goofy
be
thing
funny. I
from
think
Star Trek.
you can't kill a bunch of people and then make it funny. So I think it's going to be like a serious threat.
Chateau Picard. Mm. Sorry, go on. Go on.
No, that was worth an interruption. Thank you for saying that. So we go to Orion for the first time, so that's exciting. And I just thought how funny it was that Orion was so green. It's all
Yes.
like shades of green. I thought they would like maybe do like surprises, like they're all green, but the planet's purple or something, like some complementary
Mhm.
color. But it's like no, the planet is green, and it's like green castles and green pastures, and every person on this planet is a shade of green. Anyway, so what did we think about the first Orion culture episode and how the Orion culture has been presented? Let's start with Alan.
It was fine. I feel like it was fun to see it. I did feel like it felt kind of like human. It didn't feel alien enough for me.
Hmm.
Because yeah, they kind of go to a rave thing, and then they're at their fancy house, and they're kind of like almost a monarchy type thing, even though they're like a crime syndicate family. It seems like they're royal, kind of like royalty. So, I mean, it didn't feel as exotic and alien as I feel like they might have presented it in live action, where this show kind of, I don't know how to really explain it, what my thought process is here, but it just feels like they're riffing on like rave culture and high society culture, like Earth stuff that we have. So, but it was fun, like, but yeah, I feel like it wasn't as alien as I felt it should be, if that makes sense. They just felt like green humans.
like
Which is kind of what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the green, but they're pirates and criminals.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I think it made sense with the way that the Orions have been presented before. It wasn't really a surprise to me. It just felt a little bit like, a pirate's kind of paradise. Like they party all the
Doom,
time. Everybody has a lot
doom,
of
doom,
money.
doom, doom, doom. You didn't. You said a pirate's paradise. It made me think of that song. I want to do the.
That's gangster's paradise.
Oh my
No, but
god.
it's
Being a pirate in a crime kind of culture and violence, it didn't come off to me as it was like a violent place to grow up or exist.
I
I
don't
mean, I know, but
know.
again, it's in a comedy, so you gotta take that culture that in live action would have been like presented as probably pretty dark, and they gotta lighten it up and make them kind of funny and goofy, because of the tone of the show. But
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
just, yeah.
I didn't really, I didn't get that impression. I thought, Mariner gets stabbed like four
Yeah.
times in the
Oh yeah,
in the
that's very
episode,
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is great, and they have that awesome drinking game with the death crab.
Mhm.
Um, so I got the sense that it was like a piratey, dangerous kind of place, but you still need to live in it, right? Like you still need
Mhm.
to grow up in that environment. So it's not going to be like 100% deadly. So I thought they struck a really really good balance culturally,
Mhm.
like in terms of what they were trying to show, and it made sense. I enjoyed watching it. Like it was different enough that it was interesting, but also kind of familiar, right? Like it wasn't totally alien. So uh, it was fine. Like I felt that I could relate to it a little bit. No, I'm not a pirate. I just, like, yeah, I've been to a rave. I've gone to a rave once. It was
Mhm.
it was
you've
interesting.
been stabbed a couple times. I understand what you're saying.
I've
You
been
do live in
stabbed
this.
3 times in the shoulder in the same spot.
Well, you grew
Yeah,
up in
for sure.
Mississauga, right? So,
Well,
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, hundred
Jenny.
percent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm more on the Namir side of the debate because I feel like, yes, obviously Orion's primary thing that they do is piracy, but the whole planet isn't seedy, and I like that. I like that it's, that they, the more successful pirates have this like really nice, great lifestyle, and that because I mean they are like built on money and stuff and like growing wealth, right? So it makes sense that they would have like a class system, obviously. So yeah, I thought that was great. Like I appreciated the fact that they land in this like a luxurious, amazing place where Teddy grew up, and then they do go to these like crappier places, and like the junkyard, like that's just like a place that they go. Yeah, so I feel like we got a nice kind of well-rounded picture of what things are like on Orion.
and I feel like they did a good job of, even though Ferengi culture is also based on money
Mm.
and wealth that they were able to differentiate it. And I think it's really interesting
Yeah.
too. I'm sure you guys noticed this as well, but when we saw, the Orion slave girl was mentioned in the very first episode of Star Trek, in the first pilot in the cage, and it was always, and then a green Orion girl would prop up here and there, was always some sort of sex symbol. And then when they brought them in Star Trek Enterprise, it was revealed that actually the women were in charge of the society because they controlled the
Mm.
men with their pheromones and all this sort of stuff.
Mm.
Which and so they really pick up on that that cultural backstory that was established
So
in
great.
Enterprise. And
That whole like, I'm hopped up on the stink.
oh
Just
yeah,
like just so good. I just love that they ran with that. Like I thought that was great.
it's like halfway through the episode, and you're like, oh, are they just walk into like a sex bondage club? I think they did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally, it's kind of like a strip club and a sex bondage club.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, Mariner was like, oh, I like your health dungeon. It's like everybody's like sniffing each other. Yeah.
Hump dungeon.
oh,
Health
hump
dungeon.
dungeon.
The hump dungeon. Yeah.
It's
Oh my
yeah, it's
god.
fun how they go that far with those things, and how a lot of the gender roles are reversed. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
at the wedding, and Mariner says, "Oh, he's radiant." Is that what he said? He's so radiant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's glowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
I
there was
love
there was
that.
a picture of oh, she swung him over the threshold like a Tarzan, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I thought all that stuff was really fun.
And you know what was great about that is they didn't really call attention to it, right? They
No.
weren't like Mariner doesn't land on the planet and go, "Oh, all the gender roles are reversed. That's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting." Like it was
Yeah.
just the way it was.
Yeah. Yeah. They never said Orion is a traditionally, matriarchal society. Like it was just, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. I love that.
exactly, exactly. It was just totally natural, and they just kind of like wrote it that way,
Mm-hmm.
which was really smart, I thought.
I always find, especially in Star Trek, when Star Trek isn't talking about sexism or racism or trying to bring up issues directly, but just by example. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed in the original series. Aside from all the Chekhov Russian jokes and stuff like that, like generally speaking, Kirk wasn't going to Sulu like, so my Japanese American friend, what is your, like, and this kind of stuff that would date it and make it feel really weird. It was just like, we're not
Mm-hmm.
even talking about it. So let's talk a little bit about the B story, which is Boimler and Rutherford. I'm pronouncing his name wrong. How do you say it?
Rutherford's right. Yeah. Rutherford's right.
Yeah.
Rutherford. Okay,
Rutherford.
Yeah.
not
I think you said
Rutherford.
Rutherford. Yeah.
Rutherford.
Rudyford. Rafferty. Uh, yeah. So I like that part, that sort of B story where they're like the best. Um, they're the best roommates in the world. They're basically roommates the way that Alan and I were roommates when we lived together for 6 months. That's how I remembered it. Alan, would you like to watch Star Trek? I would love to watch Star Trek. Would you?
Alan's like, was it 6 months? It felt like 2 years.
How did we feel about the show? Jenny. What do you think about the B story?
Rutherford and Boimler. Loved most of it. I mean, like I loved it, but, like
It's a
anyway.
10.
Anyway, it's not a 10. It's not a 10. Um,
Oh.
but
Oh,
I really liked this idea that, like, I mean, first of all, the Twain thing, like initially I thought was like very funny. I enjoyed the idea of the Twain thing, that I like, because the whole thing where Star Trek characters go onto holodecks and pretend to be other people is hilarious to me. And I mean, not hilarious, but I just love how it's like this universal thing that people in the future do, that they like LARP, uh, history and literature, and it's super weird and very Star Trekky, and I love it. Anyway, but what I really like is the idea that these two guys found a way to, like, figure out their problems through holodeck programs, and it gave me like O'Brien Bashir kind of like, that's what they do together. You know what I mean? Like O'Brien and Bashir, their like entire social relationship is darts or LARPing. You know, I love that, right? Like these two very different people who occasionally butt heads, they find common ground in the holodeck, and I thought that was great. And there was lots. There's lots in there. The whole Chalnoth thing I was very excited about also.
Are you from
Yeah.
Chalnoth? You know my
Right?
planet?
As soon as I saw
I
his
was
teeth, I know.
I was very excited, yeah, because when I saw him on the view screen, I'm like, is that a Chalnoth? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the guy from Allegiance. And then they said it later, and I'm like, oh, perfect. My nerd cred is
Oh yeah.
intact. Because I was pretty sure that's what they're depicting. But you
I
never
just
quite
love
know until
when
they
they bring
fail.
when they bring back characters like that, like, because I like that character, and he just shows up in one episode of Next Generation, kind of almost like a Klingon warrior race, and it's like so interesting and impressive, and is like, I feel like just in that one episode was like, got a sense of that culture's backstory, and then boom,
Mm-hmm.
gone, never seen again for like 50 years or something. Was that a dream? Is
And
that a
then
real planet?
And then, yeah, I really did laugh out loud when he was dressed up in the Mark Twain
Oh my
costume. I'm
God,
like,
yes.
how did they
Yeah.
convince him to wear this?
Yeah.
How did they convince Freeman to wear it too?
Yeah.
I was like, this seems like a ridiculous thing that neither one would get.
This hair hat is too itchy.
Oh man, yeah.
He had my other favorite line, which was, "Starfleet data is too thorough and detailed." I
Oh
was like,
man,
it's probably true.
when he ate their bonsai tree,
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
I died because I thought they were gonna like soothe the savage beast. Like, oh, he's gonna like get
Mm-hmm.
really into bonsai. He'll have little
Yeah.
scissors and he'll take
Yeah.
the tree home. But they just ate it.
Yeah.
It's like, I need mist in it. Oh, oh man, that was great. And they're just like so sad that their bonsai tree's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So the B story, I think that's where all the laughs were for me. Like I think the A story with Tendi was good and it was entertaining and I liked it, but the B story was the funny storyline, right? Like the B story was the odd couple, the the Brotherford, which I thought was
Yeah.
amazing. It was like, how did that work out that they
I
could say
know.
that? Anyway, it's like, but they weren't like, but it's weird because they're not really an odd couple. Like I feel like they're actually very similar, and because they're so similar, that's actually why they
Mm-hmm.
started butting heads, which was a really interesting take. And I like that they were dressing up as Mark Twain uh, on a riverboat for some reason. Like what holodeck simulation is that? What story is that following? What are they playing out here?
Why does the holodeck story have an exterior shot? Like, who's this
I
exterior shot for?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's for you,
I
Alan.
Didn't make
no,
any
I
sense, but it's so funny.
I really like that storyline. I I was like, when they started it, I was really thinking that this was just going to kind of be a waste of time, and I wanted to go back to the main storyline. But then it turned out that their little storyline was the one I enjoyed the most.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why I felt like I liked the Tendi story. Like I liked the exploration of Orion, but it didn't really lend itself to a lot of laugh opportunities as much as their lower decks side stories, that they have on the Cerritos.
It's funny because the Mariner thing, Mariner getting stabbed, like I laughed out loud every time that happened because it was so well timed. Like,
That was a fun
Yeah,
gag,
yeah,
yeah.
that was
And then
great.
T'Lyn's, logging of
yeah.
their culture customs, and then tossing her research out. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a few laughs, but overall it wasn't as laugh out loud funny as
Mm.
other storylines.
Yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily looking for that much laughing. Like, I mean, I like it and I find it amusing, but I find it way more interesting when they're exploring a new planet, doing Star Trek stuff
Hmm.
and exploring a new culture, and we're learning, something, and they're trying to like actually figure something out, which I'm going to talk about more later because it's one of my gripes about the episode. But like this is why I'm excited about the mystery ship blowing things up because it's like maybe it's going to turn into an actual real plot that we're going to, with stakes that we're going to care about. Um,
Yeah, but I think the point of the show isn't necessarily to be that part of Star Trek, right? Like
Mm.
it's not it's really to make us laugh, right? It's a workplace comedy. It's a workplace animated comedy, right? So when
Yeah,
it does that part of its job well, then I appreciate that, right? I look at it and I go, oh, that was really, really good. I'm laughing. That's why I watch this show.
yeah. We have the other shows for the other stuff, the serious stuff,
That's that's
the singing
exactly.
and the dancing,
Yeah.
all
The
that serious
science
stuff.
fiction.
okay, so I want to talk about the Orion shipyard or whatever it was called.
Mm.
The ship that they took, was that the Raven from Voyager?
That's what I said too. I'm like,
Oh, was
I'm pretty
it?
sure that's the Hansen ship from
Yeah, it was
Voyager. Yeah,
Federation for sure. Yeah, that's
but the
But it,
design of
awesome.
it, I think, is the Raven. Yeah,
yeah,
Mm.
it's
yeah,
at
yeah.
least that. I mean, it's not the Raven, but it's that class of ship. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
Raven class.
Raven class.
yeah. Big shout
I
out
think it's
to
funny too.
the background painting team because when they lit up the Alcars on that ship when it took off, that was very nice.
But yeah, I like that about their. That was one of the things I liked about Orion was that the fact that they just had these vast junkyards of stuff that they pillaged and plundered, and they realized this is just crap we don't need from our
Hmm.
looting, and they just put it in these vast garbage dumps. I like too when the ship at the beginning too when they're sorting through their loot, and they have like the TOS phasers, like just throw that in the garbage and
Yeah.
throw it in the trash can. I'm like, that's like 100-year-old phaser. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean there was the fight with Tendi and her sister, and it made me so nervous because Tendi was fighting with a rusty blade, and I'm like, oh, just be careful with the rusty blade.
Don't get lockjaw. Are your tetanus shots up to date?
So okay, so this is where the episode sort of I wouldn't say falls apart because that's a little harsh, but I noticed because ever since we started reviewing season 4, I've gone back and I'm watching all of Lower Decks. I just finished watching all of season 1
Hmm.
Lower Decks, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time, but I'm realizing there's two things that they're doing again and again, which is creating a situation where there's going to be tension, like somebody's going to be angry, and then there's a close up on the person going "Rah!" like a monster or something, and then suddenly there's a switch and the monster's like, "That's great! I love chocolate!" And then ha 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 ha, and they keep doing this kind of gag or this turn. And then the other thing is, and this is my problem generally with comedies, is they don't necessarily take the plot seriously. So the plot here is that she's looking for her sister because her sister's been kidnapped, and I liked the whole journey. I had a really good time, as she's doing her investigating and trying to find her sister. And then her sister is fighting her, and they're getting a little angry. And then it's the same thing. There's like a switch, and it's like, oh, but I wanted to be the thing all along. Ha ha ha. We love each other. I'm like, what? It's really that's the whole resolution to this whole thing is like, and just from an emotional character point of view, that's often what's happening. Is just resolution. Haha, all done. Like, okay, I think I'm getting too old for this. I guess I know it's a cartoon, but I'm looking for something a little more nuance and ambiguity
Hmm.
in my characterizations. But anyway, so that's my 2 cents about it. What did you guys think about the resolution? I want to hear about Jenny because she's laughing so much.
Maybe you should just stop watching Star Trek because that's
I'm
not what you're gonna get. You need to watch other shows like The Expanse or something if you want something more nuanced and adult.
I mean, you should watch The Expanse, but um But that aside, I mean, I think I understand what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying. Like they're sort of yeah, the wrap up happens quickly. I mean, and the wrap up has always happened quickly on Star Trek. It's just that normally we have like twice as much time for the wrap up to be twice as long, which isn't really that much longer, but it's, you know what I mean?
Right, so, but it's not the length of the wrap up. It's how it gets wrapped up.
No. I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you know, I mean, I'm thinking of Next Generation episodes where there's really, you know, actually Allegiance is a great example because they basically like they get Picard back, and then there's the thing where they capture the two guys, but they like trap the guy, and then they're just like, boom, 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 we're just gonna do a bunch of stuff without talking about it, and then show them like how cool we are, and we understand that we can capture them, and they're like, we'll never do it again, ah! And then, you know, and don't get me wrong, I love Allegiance, so that's, but all I'm saying is just that on a slightly larger scale could be argued about a lot of Star Trek. But anyway, that said, I don't mind it because it sort of fits with the general vibe of the show.
Right. So, Namir and Alan, would you guys say that generally you don't really care that they wrap it up? It is not really the point. The point is that we're there for some laughs and some references and that, so it doesn't really matter. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, you know, I kind of think exactly that. Like, I don't watch Lower Decks for the wrap up, right? Like, I don't watch Lower Decks for like the lesson at the end of the end of the episode, right? Like, it's really just about how they got there, right? It's about the, you know, the gags along the way, you know, having fun getting to, you know, the end, and the fact that they're able to kind of usually tie up these episodes really nicely is pretty great, right? But it's not even required. Like, you know, if Tendi had never found her sister and they just had to leave and that was never resolved, I wouldn't care. You know, I just would have been like, okay, that's fine. I had a good
But
time, you know.
I
There's
think that would have been a more
there's two
interesting
Mark
ending than
Twains,
the
you know.
that would have been a more interesting ending than the ending they had. I would have been more interested in that ending if they
Hmm.
would have just like whatever, you know. It's the same, but to me, it always feels like the same wrap up and the same type of wrap up. And why can't it be ambiguous? Can it be like they don't find her, or can it be like that they don't resolve all the things and she's pissed off at her sister, you know?
Well,
But
because then you would need another half hour to unpack all that, right? Like you would need another half hour to make that type of ending work, right? It almost has
Hmm.
to be a predictable ending because they don't have enough time to set up anything else, right? They need something else because if it was that, we'd all be complaining right now and going, "Well, that came out of nowhere," you know.
Hmm.
They didn't set that up at all. That's terrible writing, you know. So I
mm,
don't think they really had a choice, especially with this episode. Like you could see that ending coming a mile away, but it
Hmm.
was okay. You know, it was fine. It resolved itself. It kind of resolved all the themes, you know. So I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with the way that they've treated those types of endings in the past. And I do understand what you're saying, where
Hmm.
it's kind of like they're presented. You know, the show presents like a threat or an alien, and you have one sort of expectation of it up front, and then they switch it, right? Like they kind of play with your expectations a little bit, and you know the Klingons are actually hilarious, or the Romulans are something else. But that's the DNA of the show. Like that's what makes it work. That's why we watch it,
Hmm.
right? Because they do these really interesting things. So stop complaining. I don't know why you're whining all the
listen,
time. It's
you
like constant blah 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 blah. This is what's wrong with the show. I'm Lucas. I have a ladder in my kitchen.
uh, that's rich. That's rich, Namir, coming from you,
I
a
don't
guy
see a
who never.
ladder here.
Okay, Alan, what do you think?
What do I think? I think a lot of things. What am we talking about now?
We're talking about lower decks and bad endings.
uh, yeah, the ending was fine. Again, like I said at the first of this, where you're going to cut me all up, apparently, is that I thought this episode should have tied into the Orion ship destruction at the beginning somehow. I don't know how they, I'm not the writer of the show, but yeah,
They
I just
mentioned
feel
it.
like we're at the we're at that point where we should be knowing more, not just seeing random ships being blown up. But we'll see what they do with it next week.
No, but Jenny's right.
Uh,
Freeman does mention it. Freeman does mention the disappeared Orion ship.
oh, does
That
he? Maybe I missed
yeah,
that.
because Tendy's like,
Yeah.
oh, I shouldn't, I'm not gonna, I can't believe you gave me leave for this, and she's like, well, it's really important to the Federation that we have good relations, like that we show sort of a good,
Oh,
what with that Orion ship
yeah.
getting blown up,
Yes, I was
not
quickly
by
trying to watch
us.
this episode before we started this, so I might have missed a few things. Um, but yeah, I have no problem with it. Like again, I do watch this show basically for the lightheartedness of it. Again, it feels like I'm watching Futurama or something. Whereas like I do love these characters. I love the relationships. I love the character development. But I like that it's framed, and usually a goofy, off the wall adventure. So I don't think I come here for an ongoing storyline or anything. And again,
Okay,
I
so I agree, and
I
so
like the tidy endings. Yes.
Hmm.
so I'm gonna let this go. However, if this multi-arc spaceship thing, Alan, you're saying we're not here for like the multi-arc series thing, and this is what they're gonna start presenting, the multi-arc series thing. And if that ship opens up and then they make a big joke out of it and there's a handshake and like, but we were like friends the whole time or whatever, then I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm just fair
That's
warning.
If it's
fair.
just
That
if
is
it's just
fair.
Balak in there with his Tranya, it's like, oh, I just wanted to have a drink
Oh,
with someone.
I would go for that. That would be actually kind of cool. Here are all your
Whatever
friends. I
happened
just
to the First Federation anyway? That's what I always wondered in this franchise.
well,
They
they need to
it
come
seemed like
back
they
for
were a
sure.
big thing, and then they never came back.
Yeah,
The First Federation are ready for a reappearance.
I'm excited.
The Orion stuff aside, I liked the visit home thing because that there's a there's a history of those visit home episodes in Star Trek,
Mm.
and like some are good and some are not as good, and I just like there's the Esri one in DS9, there's the T'Pol one that I love and also hate.
There's the
So
Picard,
many.
the family, season 4
Yeah,
family.
yeah, exactly. Like it's just
There's a Quark goes back to Ferenginar.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
there's just a history in Star Trek of the
Cisco goes back to his dad's restaurant.
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's this sort of like little slice of life episode in some respect.
William Shatner goes back to Montreal. No.
Yes, exactly.
He went to the
Uh,
Nexus. That's the closest he got to going home.
Hmm.
apparently, home is chopping wood and burning eggs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you as well, Jenny. I
Mm.
really like that part of the episode. And it was fun to learn about Tendi and kind of really delve into it. And, like I said last week, I mean, I forget most of the show, but
Hmm.
having now rewatched it, there was that mission where she accidentally was on that mission to Romulus or something. And then it was like, did like a ninja kung fu thing to like the Romulan guards. And it was kind of played for a joke, but now it explains that she had this training as a Orion assassin, and
Hmm.
I liked it, especially because they were kind of um, they. It's been part of her character development. This idea of like, I'm not a typical Orion, and I don't like all these Orion stereotypes. And then you go see the planet, and you see, oh, it's not just like. I think it would have been too easy if they went to the Orion home planet and they were all farmers or something
Hmm.
and they're like, we don't care about money. It was like, no. There were things in the culture that are part of that, and she's kind of embarrassed about that part of the culture. And now you see even more why she's embarrassed because she's like, in her family has this position of she should be like the head pirate or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do our ratings. Let's start with our ratings and our little wrap up of our thoughts. Let's start with Alan.
Yeah, so this one wasn't my favorite one. I mean, it was fine. Actually, I know it might get a little bit of hate, but Tendy's not my favorite character. I don't find her that particularly exciting. But
Hmm.
like in the aspect of it being a comedy, you know, she's like I'm least interested in her.
Hmm.
Like I think Rutherford's funny and Boimler's funny and Mayor's funny and the senior staff is. I actually really like Shrax and Dr. Ta'ana and all them. I wish they'd actually. I know it's called Lower Decks, but I wish we would see more of them. But so I probably give this one like a 7 out of 10. It was good, but it wasn't my favorite one.
Hmm.
Probably my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually came into this thinking I was like, that was like a solid 8. And then you guys actually sold me more on the Boimler and Rutherford stuff, so I bumped it up to a 9 because I'm like, no, actually that stuff was great. Like,
I thought you were
yeah,
going to
because
say because of all my criticism that you actually really reconsidered this episode. You thought it was way worse than it actually was. I was like,
oh
nope.
no.
Well, so yeah, that was my feeling about the Samuel Clemens thing too. Is like I thought it was funny, but then I felt it went on a little too long too. So
But then
again, it's probably
yeah,
unpopular opinion.
yeah, it was sort of like, yeah, when you reminded me about the hair hat thing, I was like, oh no, that line itself was worth that extra
Yeah, that
piece.
was pretty
Like,
funny.
I thought that was awesome. So yes, I'm calling it a solid 9.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8. I like the episode. I like both storylines. I thought the Brotherford storyline was hilarious. I don't know why. I just like dueling Twains is just
Mm.
really funny to me, and their southern homey folk sayings. Um, so that was great. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so it's an 8. I like Tendy's storyline. I understand what you're saying, Alan. Like, I think Tendi is an interesting character, but I don't think any of those characters really work in isolation. Like, they're only
Hmm.
funny because they're together, right? Like,
Yeah.
they play
Yeah,
off each other. So
yeah,
I think that's the same. Like, when Rutherford had his own standalone kind of episode where you find out about his past and all that,
yeah.
I didn't find that as interesting either, right?
Hmm.
So whenever they
Nope.
pull a character out and it's an episode about that one character, it's not as good. So I suspect that's the same thing with Tendi.
Hmm.
But I like her character. I think she's pretty interesting. Um, yeah, so I'm going to give it an 8. I like the episode. I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, I actually really enjoy this episode, and I don't want you guys to come away with this idea like I don't like the show or I'm irritated with the show.
Really? Why would we think
I
that?
actually, it's actually that I, it's actually that I
You
really
only
do
say
like
that
the
every
show.
time we do this.
It's really that I do really like the show, and then there's a little piece missing that like it's because I care. If I didn't care, then I'd be like, whatever, no ending, who cares, But I think I'm starting to get really invested, and I really like this episode a lot because of the storylines and the investigation. Like I'm, I don't. It's not that I don't think the show is funny. I think the show is funny, but I'm less into the funny part of the show, and I don't laugh that much when I watch the show. I just,
Hmm.
it's amusing, it's interesting, it's the funniest of all the Star Trek, and I like that about the show. But it's not what I'm getting attached to. What I'm getting attached to is the characters and the situation. So I really loved getting to know Tendi more and all that stuff. So when there was a little twist at the end and a quick little wrap up, I was disappointed because I was like, oh, I was like, it was getting meaty and interesting, and then it was just like, and it's just a comedy, haha. That's all, folks. I was like, oh, I was a little irritated. So I would have given it a 9. It was a 9 episode, but then there was that thing at the end, and that was an 8. So we'll give it an 8 out of 10. But still good,
Nice.
still a good time.
Oh, well said. Mm.
All right, folks, we will be back next week to do episode 5 this time. And who knows what will happen? Hopefully, we'll get to see a bit more about what's happening with that mystery ship, and it will finally be
Mm.
revealed as Beecher's love child.
Badgey.
I don't even, what would that even look like?
It would
It
look like
looks like
Badgey.
it would look. No, it would look, stop with the Badgey, Alan.
Just where it's off